I remember a lot of tears. My mother could make a pound of meat feed us for a week. My father was a partner with another man in a little soda fountain, sort of like a little, it would be comparable to, say, maybe McDonald's now. You could get a hamburger, you could get a ice cream cone, and the Depression really, people quit going to the ice cream store. So they were in bad shape financially. My mother had a mink coat up until the Depression, and her pride and joy, and she had to sell it. So the banks all closed. They got eventually they got back a quarter, 50 cents, maybe up at the highest point, 50 cents on a dollar for what they had deposited in their accounts. It was really, I can remember my mother crying almost every night. Anyhow, my mother knew I needed, I was, at this point I was probably about 10 years old. And it started in 1929, but it went all the way straight through till the war came along. I was in a play at St. Mary's, and Jack Ralston was in the play, and he had a line. There was a table, and I said, oh, my line was, oh, that table is beautiful. Did you make it? And of course it was a wooden table, and his line was, yes, I made it out of my own head. And for years after that, I kept saying, you've got a wooden head because you made a table out of it. Anyhow, I had to look like a poor girl. And this is the saddest part. I regret to this day that I ever said this to my mother. My mother couldn't get me a new winter coat. So my uncle had a coat he didn't want anymore. She ended up ripping every seam in that coat, ironing it out with wet cloth and an iron, cutting a pattern for me out of that coat. And of course it was sort of gray, not the least bit attractive. And I went home after I found out what I was supposed to be wearing, something that looked poor and raggedy. And I said to my mother, my mother said, what do you need for your costume for the play? And I said, oh, don't worry about it, Mom, I'm gonna wear the coat, my coat that you made. It makes me look needy and poor. And she stood there, and to this day, I regret that I made her feel so badly, thinking I should have said, I'll wear that wonderful coat you made me, but I hated it. And I made her, and when I think of the work she put, because to take the seams out of all those seams on that coat and start from scratch with pieces, I still to this day feel so badly that I hurt her feelings, because I could tell, she just looked at me and looked so sad that I didn't like it. That's part of the Depression. But it went on, and that's the thing that's so sad, because my father ended up, they kept the store, but Gilbert Sodini, his partner, could never recover and went home one night and killed himself, shot himself. And then his wife took over, because she had a son that she had to take care of. So my father and his partner's wife ran the store then for probably about 15 years until she retired. And when people talk about the Depression, like, oh well, the only thing that saved that at that time sounds terrible, but it's the war. If the war hadn't come along and everybody had jobs, everybody could get a job, I don't know what we would have done, because it just went on and on.